House us therefore in the powdering tub of thy mercy.
that we may be tripes fit for the heavenly table,
Welcome, Meatsmiths. You are listening to a Meatsmith Harvest
restoring husbandry to prosperity.
through the traditions of our fathers.
This dialogue picks up where we left off in our last episode's conversation. You can find part 1 on our website, YouTube, or iTunes. If the content resonates with you, please consider supporting our team by going to patreon.com/Meatsmith and donating a small monthly pledge. This goes directly toward more free media headed your way. Thanks for staying tuned for part 2. Yeah. What do you want to start with?
I don't know. I like the Schola. I love one of our priests who is just so gifted and skilled is got a group of guys, and he's at the parish and he's teaching us the chant. He's teaching us how to chant. And that's wonderful. And I have nothing but delight in that.
Oh, okay.
And I practice every day. It's a lot of work, but it's so infinitely worth it, like exponentially worth it. It's not even funny. It's so rewarding. Mm-hmm. It's one of those things where anyone that's learned an instrument, I guess, maybe you experience this, but if you do practice, after the third day of practice, you start to notice, okay, we're getting somewhere. I'm actually gaining a virtue here.
Every week, a cycle of a week.
Yeah, it's happening.
Oops, sorry. The 3 days.
Yeah.
The third day is when you start to feel...
I think so. I feel like it's there's, most of the work, 90% of whatever the work is just starting. They say that, mm-hmm. which is very true. And I think if you can get past those first 3 days, then you will notice progress. But that's wonderful mm-hmm. and beautiful. And we meet once a week in the evening for class. And
okay, well, let's go into more of that. What is Gregorian chant? If you had to describe it.
Yeah.
And I'm throwing this out at you cold turkey. And there's
mm-hmm.
no dictionary.
Yeah.
There's an Oxford English dictionary.
There is, and I'm tempted. But once I open that, it's open for hours, and I don't do anything else.
I've done that.
So
yeah.
Gregorian chant is so it's all in Latin, and it's basically, I hesitate to say that it is the music of the liturgy of the Catholic Church, because I don't want it to sound like it's the background music that accompanies the Mass. It's not that.
Technically, you might say of the Roman Rite, because mm-hmm. there are a few different rites.
That's right. It is, yeah.
So, and I think it's okay to say that it is.
Yeah. It's the Roman Rite, but it's not just the music of.
That's right.
Like it is the integral prayer of the Church and of the Roman Rite. And so when you have Mass, for example, there are many things that happen at Mass every single time. I mean, you could just take any given Sunday or every day, and there's going to be what they call the ordinary parts of the Mass. There's going to be the Kyrie, the Gloria, unless we're in Lent, but and the Agnus Dei. And these are things that are, in a low Mass, they're just spoken by the priest. But in a high Mass or a solemn high pontifical Mass, they're sung. They're sung. Gloria in excelsis Deo. And then you have, in addition to that, proper prayers that are proper just to that day for that particular feast. Mm-hmm. And those are also sung. And if you attend Mass at a traditional parish that is using the Roman Missal from 1962, the Latin Mass. So it's all going to be in Latin, by the way. All Gregorian chant is in Latin. There's no such thing as English Gregorian chant that has non-being. That does not exist. So you can't do it in English. Okay. Doesn't work.
Okay.
At all. If you go to a Mass, you might experience a low Mass, which does not have music. So there's no singing. There's no chanting proper. It's all actually whispered by the priest, most of it. And then you might have a sung mass or a missa cantata, which is a mass that it's still just one priest and attended usually by an organ, and then the ordinary will be chanted and the propers will be chanted, and there will be a choir or a schola singing those chants, and that's beautiful and wonderful. And then you will have a solemn high mass or a pontifical high mass, which is offered by a bishop, and that's got many more parts to it, and including like vesting. The bishop part of the mass is when the bishop vests for mass. He just puts on the vestments that he will wear for offering the mass. And we would be tempted upon seeing these three like in succession to think that the pontifical high mass is the most elaborate. Has the most ceremonial and beautiful and decorative elements added on to what would be just the more simple core of the low mass.
Mm-hmm.
But it's actually the exact opposite.
Mm-hmm.
So the pontifical high mass is the mass.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Mm-hmm.
When you have a low mass, because a low mass is actually just a priest's private mass, technically. And it's more of an Irish, British, and something we inherited in the U.S. for a lot of lay people to attend a priest's private mass, which is a low mass. And that's wonderful and beautiful. But what the private mass is, the priest, all of his actions are actually references to the pontifical high mass.
Yeah.
So all the things he does, they're indications to what the mass is in its fullness in the pontifical high mass. And
would it be okay to say that in order to make it more accessible to a priest's daily mass and therefore also the laity, we have pared it down to its essential? Well, it's all essential, is what you're just saying.
Yeah.
But it's not as elevated because you can't get a schola together every day.
Every day, right? Because the thing is, every priest must say the mass every day. Not because it's really good for the people, though it is. It's like actually the best thing for the people. But because he owes it to God in justice to offer the sacrifice every single day. And
he's still saying all of those prayers.
He's still saying all of them, yeah.
It's just the schola isn't in addition to him.
Part of it, yeah. So when you say that the chant, it's not the background music, it's not church music. It's not the background music to the ceremony. It's not the pretty thing that gets you in the right mood, for the mass. It's actually the prayers of the mass is totally essential. It's not just an accident. It's part of the substance of
it's coming to mind, if any of our audience is at all interested in this. But Dr. Peter Kwasniewski is coming to mind. He's got he has a new book out. It's called like Silence, Sacred Music, Profane Music or something. I'll look it up. It's really good. And he talks about the organic development of Gregorian chant and how it started. It was always there in its core at the beginning and with the time of the apostles. And then it, over the first centuries and first millennia, it grew and it kind of had this crescendo, and climax moment in the Middle Ages and High Christendom. And then that was when it was like canonized.
Locked in. Yeah.
Locked in, exactly. And then from there, we're just supposed to continue it.
Yeah.
And, of course, then modernity kind of stopped all kind of continuation of anything. But that is how it developed, along with the monastic way of life, because they would pray the breviary. It's all tied to the Psalms as well.
Yeah, so most of the words of the chant, it's all scripture. I mean, the vast majority of it. A lot of it too is composed by the church over the centuries. Some of the prayers predating canonical scripture, and it's very ancient. That's the other thing. It's one of those things that have been in the tradition in memoriam, like outside of present memory. We don't know how old it is because it's just been there always. And there's lots of things like Dies Irae and lots of very ancient chants that probably they even predate Christ. They come from the temple because they would sing the Psalms as well. And it's even some of the fathers, I think, have mentioned that, when our Lord uttered those words on the cross of Psalm 22, my God, why have you abandoned me? That's just more like so much of the writing in the Gospels, that's more of a placeholder for the entire Psalm. And that our Lord would have known, of course, that whole Psalm, because a lot of people would have. And it was something that was sung in the temple or in the synagogues. And that he probably was likely chanting the entire Psalm from the cross. Yeah. Wow. So the provenance, the ancient nature of the chant is, it's extremely ancient. And it just keeps building and keeps being passed on, which is what like tradition means.
When I'm not going to go and give an example, but if you think of a favorite pop song that we all know and you say one line of it, then you can't help but keep singing the rest of the song because it's so in there. It's been ingrained in us. And I think that's how the Psalms used to be.
Yeah. Psalm 22. Yeah. Yeah. It's unique in music because it doesn't use standard notation. It uses chant notation, something older and actually much simpler. It's very simple. That's the thing. Chant is very simple, and you've all heard it. You could even just find examples. The monks of Nursia have beautiful examples of chant. Our Lady of Guadalupe Seminary has beautiful examples of chant. Clear Creek Monastery has beautiful examples of chant, and you could find those online on YouTube. But the thing that is very different about it is it doesn't have like a mechanical meter.
Yes.
So how with modern music, you can literally get a little machine that will go tick-tock, tick-tock for you and keep beat. Chant doesn't have that. And it's not that it doesn't have a rhythm. It's that it's not a mechanical, quantitatively equivalent boom, 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 boom beat the whole time at all. It's more of a breathing rhythm. It's like a pulse. It's a living rhythm, and it's such that the pulse doesn't. It's not like you shove the words to fit a specific meter. It's the opposite. The even the tone, the melody, even and the timing of the piece is designed to fit the words, because the words are the words of Holy Scripture or the words of a prayer of the church, and so the words are actually paramount. And then and so what you get with the chant is this beautiful word painting, where the melody then, not shackled by a mechanical rhythm, is freed to illustrate the words themselves, the content of what is being said. So if we're referring to, the ascension of our Lord, the notes will get very high, or the Assumption even of Our Lady. Or if you're referring to hell or the underworld, they might go very low. And there's lots of word painting. And it's more than just high and low, like there might be dissonance. If it's the Good Friday service and you're chanting about Judas, it'll be lots of dissonance, lots of fa to t.
Oh, okay.
That little fourth right there is just so dissonant to the ear. There will be lots of that, and it's all word painting.
So you mentioned some examples. I wanted to mention one particular, well, I'll mention a few, but Nicholas Lemmy, and we'll find his YouTube channel and send it to you. He is the director, the main director at Our Lady of Guadalupe Seminary. And he has, and what's coming to mind, a great, it's like 40 minutes long, but it is the gospel narrative of John, the Passion narrative. It's the whole thing in Gregorian Chant. And you have different parts played by different singers. And the mob, the people are sung by the group, like the choir, you would say, like the schola, I guess, like a group of 4 or 5 men. I don't know how many, but and that is really impactful to listen to their answers, their justifications of whatever action they're taking, and it's haunting. It really gets you to hear. I mean, the words themselves are already living because it's the scripture, but then to hear it come alive, even
though it's Latin. That's the amazing thing, is that it's we tend to conflate intelligibility with something being explicit.
Yes.
But you will understand the chant if you're listening.
Yeah.
Even though it's Latin. You just listen.
Dr. Kwasniewski talked about this too. The importance of Latin is the veiling itself speaks volumes.
It's veiled. Yeah, it's not explicit.
Yeah, so when you hide it a little bit, I should say hide, it's not hidden. It is a little hidden, but it's veiled.
Yeah.
It's not totally hidden. It's not like erased. It's just that it to our vernacular, it's...
well, and ultimately, I think even the idea of it, meaning the mysteries of the Mass, the prayers of the Mass, the crucifixion narrative that you just referenced, if we put those things into the vernacular, the idea that they're explicit, even that is not possible. Right? There are mysteries there that we're not plumbing the depths of those things. That is, they are veiled in themselves because they are beyond the mere natural order. We have lots of clouded intellects trying to grasp these things. So the idea that putting it in our own language will somehow deliver it undiluted to our intellects, to our brains, and we will comprehend it, that is very silly. And also, you don't want that. that's kind of lame. Yeah. Of course, the mystery, the depth is limitless. It's limitless. And the thing that putting it in vernacular does in that kind of course you want to read the scripture in your vernacular language for a different kind of understanding, but even that is not, you're not getting the whole thing, of course. There's so much more there. There's so much more truth and meaning. There's so much more analogy there. But the thing about that promise of explicitness of the vernacular is that it shuts off the search. That's the thing that a veil doth. A veil actually presents something to you in its truest form, which is veiled. Because it's like that beautiful metaphor from C.S. Lewis, who I quote sometimes, but always with caveats. But he, it's not so much that the holy thing is dark and hidden and veiled, even though it is. That's how it's presented to us. The idea is that we can't see that thing, or God himself even, face to face, until we have faces. And so there's a sense in which that limitation, it's on our end. And unless we would be consumed utterly in a moment of glory and utterly disintegrated to the depths of our being and our constituent parts, we need that veil. But that's how it can come to us, because it is veiled. And the chant does that. So it's as much as it is a veil, it is an invitation. It's calling you further up and further in. To use another C.S. Lewis Protestant quote.
Well, it's like the Moses effect. I mean, not everyone gets to see God face to face.
Moses had to veil his face.
Yeah.
He did.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the nature of the chant is very it's like that. If you suspend for a minute the idea that you need something to be explicit in order to understand it, but at this, then you should, then you will get more out of the chant.
Mm-hmm.
You will participate more in the prayer, which is what it is. Chant is prayer. This is not background music. It is prayer. So when you're chanting, you are praying.
Yeah.
Where was I going to go with that? Oh, and it's not emotional.
Yes, that's
true. So this is the other thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's sort of like killing a pig well.
Yeah.
In this sense. It actually, even with the veil, because that's what our intellect is, I don't know, I wouldn't say it's designed for it, but that's what calls it beyond itself, is the veil, is this shroud of mystery. And the chant appeals to the intellect.
Yeah.
You're never going to involuntarily tap your foot to chant.
Right.
At least I super hope not. Don't do it. It won't happen because it's not giving you a resonance that is causing your body to respond. Mm-hmm. It's not. Mm-hmm. It's actually not talking to your body. Mm-hmm. Now, because the body follows the operations of the soul, you might at certain points feel something in a bodily way, but it's because it's appealing to your soul first, and that is through your intellect. So the chant is actually, it's so modest. It has this modest veiledness to it that is appealing to your intellect. Yeah. Even though it's in Latin.
In that sense, it's not manipulative. Yeah. Like if I'm feeling something with modern music, it's because I'm kind of being manipulated to do that, to cry, to feel this or that. Yeah. But with chant, I will feel contrition or gratitude or adoration, all
charity,
these,
hopefully.
Right. Yeah. All these ends of prayer, I'll feel them and I might cry or I might be elated. Mm-hmm. But it's not because I'm being like weaseled into it. It's not from my body up. It's from the top down. Like you said, like it's because I've thought about it. Mm-hmm. And I'm almost being like I am making a conscious decision to enter further into my contrition or my gratitude, whatever posture I'm in. Yeah. Yeah. So it's a totally different way of worshiping.
It is, and it's a different way of learning to sing also, and it's on the same level of rather than being led by the body, you are using your body as your chariot, and you're driving it. Right. Your intellect is informing your will and guiding your body to sing the chant, which is so apparent because it is not natural. Yes. It's not a natural way to sing in the sense that you can just feel, conjure inspiration and put it out there and express your music as you want. That is not chant. Thanks be to God. Because when we do that, it's, we're kind of locked in this modern idea of music as the highest thing it can do is give you expression. It's self-expression. It's like, no, actually, that is the most temporally and circumstantially and selfish limiting thing that music can do. Mm-hmm. It literally ensures that the music will stay in that era and be completely forgotten immediately. It keeps it anchored to the temporal, and it will never transcend it and last forever. When it's purely the expression of an individual, even if it's super authentic. But so when you sing the chant, the point of learning how to sing the chant well is to erase yourself. But you still have to sing well. Yeah. So the goal is to have una voce, where you're actually singing with one voice. So if you're hearing a good scola, you should not be able to pick out individuals from the scola with your ear. Mm-hmm. And you can't when they do it well. Mm-hmm. They actually create blend is what you're going for.
Like a fine wine.
So yes, right? All the voices, it's such again, of course, it's a paradoxical thing because we all create a very open, like you're yawning, mouth shape. It's actually shaped like a church. You take your soft palate, becomes the dome of the church.
Mm-hmm.
Then your hard palate is like the nave.
Oh,
But
wow.
you're creating this elevation, you know, in a very open mouth. And when everybody does that, it expands everyone's just tonal range enough that we can all fit within the same tonal range. So now we're starting to sound like one voice. And when you do that, then you get resonance.
Okay, yeah, you have to describe this.
Which is really cool. When many voices come together seeking to eliminate their own individual, you know, like I have you hear my voice, it's terrible. I have a tinny,
not.
like,
No, you have a great
like
voice.
if you were to dial the what is it? The natural idiosyncrasies of my voice all the way up to 10, it would be like the chipmunks. You know, I have kind of a buzzy, I do.
I don't agree.
I hear it when I edit my voice for the videos. It's kind of buzzy, and it can be higher pitched.
Really?
Yeah.
You think so?
Especially when I sing. That's how it sounds in my ear when I sing it.
Okay.
I'm buzzy. And so it's very different for me to be singing with my voice and then to go, oh, totally. It feels so unnatural.
Yeah.
So unnatural. It's like, this is not me. This is like, I am imitating I'm actually imitating Father's voice. I'm imitating someone else's voice.
Yeah.
Because he has a very, you know, he does it so well. And it for him too, though, it was something he had to learn and discipline himself to do.
Yeah, right.
Whereas the natural just vocalization would have sounded very differently.
Right. I mean, you have a good voice, and you're really good at imitating voices. And if you were just to pick up a guitar and start singing, you would sound maybe kind of folksy, what are some of the typical songs that you sing?
I sing like 3 songs.
No, you don't.
I can be tinny. I can do the tinny voice thing.
James Taylor.
Yeah.
You can imitate James Taylor really well, who has a very, very simple, kind of silky,
it's funny though, because
casual.
he's baritone.
Okay, fine, but like just casual. It's nice. It's a nice voice.
Yeah.
It doesn't sound churchy, you know,
right?
Or
veiled or sacred.
Yeah, it doesn't. No, it's a nice voice though. But yeah, you're right. It's like you adapt your voice to accommodate this higher, more transcendent, truly transcendent.
Yeah.
Third other, you know.
That's right. Yeah. And
so does everyone else.
Yes. And when you do that, it's amazing. It happens in guitars. If you have a really high quality guitar, they will literally tone every piece of wood that is put into that guitar. Because they will all have a note that they'll want to make. And it's literally, they call it tap tuning. You know, you hold up a piece and you'll tap it before you've glued anything together. And you got to be careful how much wood you take away from that piece, because you will continue to change the note or the tone that it's giving. And so when you take these disparate pieces of a guitar and you put them together, but you've toned all the pieces, you tone them to like perfect fifths or to a chord.
Right.
So the guitar, the wood wants to make harmony with itself.
Wow.
So you have this tone that is, again, more unified rather than dissonant. You know, you don't have, you know, any fas and ts. And that's when you do that, and then you make the guitar well enough that you get sustain, which is basically just the note holds. Then you do get a sum that is more than the parts, because everything has a tone and it will resonate, especially buildings. So if you are chanting and everyone is, again, it's very non-individualistic, right? Forcing themselves into, but without forcing, because you can't force, into this particular tonal range, which is broader. The reason you do the open tall thing, it is a broader range, so more people can fit in it.
Okay.
Whereas if I just do my own like voice, that's very narrow. Nobody can fit in that. Just
that's
me
true.
and like 3 other munchkins can fit in that.
Yeah.
But But we can all fit into this broader, open, yawning mouth, tone. And you will actually get overtones that will resonate in the building you're singing in.
Okay, no, you have to describe what that means.
So it's actually, what I think it is it's when we're all singing so perfectly together as one voice. You can't hear an individual. In fact, if you listen to the FSSP Requiem Mass, the gradual in that, there's a very long solo, so-called, where one person is singing. But if you listen to it, there's no way in heaven and earth that one person can sing that long without taking a breath.
Okay.
So I think it's actually two people.
Really?
But you can't tell.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Because they're trading their breaths perfectly, right? So while one person is singing, another person is doing a catch breath. And then everyone keeps going. But it sounds like one person.
Think so?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, you got to listen to it.
Okay.
You have to listen really close. Really close. Because they're so good. The point is you're hearing one voice.
We get that confirmed.
Yeah. It's really beautiful. But when you're doing that, you're creating a greater echo, because our ears are attuned to harmony, to perfect fifths, to not to dissonance.
Yeah.
And so the notes will actually reverberate in a building, and the building will vibrate, and you will get resonance in the building itself.
And then doesn't
with the chant.
That creates its own note?
Yeah.
Or voice or something.
On top of it all. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's ridiculously beautiful. The church becomes an instrument.
Yes.
And being played by the voices of the schola. The one voice of the schola. And I just can't think of any musical form that can transcend that. It is so beautiful. It's crushingly beautiful.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that beauty does, and you were telling me this, is some quote. I don't know where it's from. See, this is what we do. We just plagiarize people. and then we're so distracted. We forget. We don't know, we don't write down like where it comes from. But beauty is the thing that ignites the will. Or something like that.
Oh, yeah.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
So the good is... the seed of the good is in the will, or because we will the good, and then the true, that's in the intellect. That's what the intellect is for. But it's beauty orders the appetites. Beauty is the thing that takes our desires.
Yes.
Appeals to our desires.
Yes.
And it's not. There we go. Because we do have them.
Yeah.
But it's also, for that reason, I think beauty is utterly persuasive.
Yeah.
It's really hard to debate with beauty. In fact, unless you are willing against it, it's kind of impossible. You can't quite do that. I don't even think you can necessarily even will the ugly unless you are seeking some other good that you perceive in that. Because the will can't necessarily will the evil as evil in and of itself. You can't even do it because it's ordered towards the good.
Because you can know the good and just not be motivated to go for it. But beauty will often be that tipping point that gets you off your feet to pursue whatever good it is that you're being called to.
Yes, and that's why I always think that the traditional Mass and the Gregorian Chant, those are not the province of super spiritual people who have attained a high degree of spiritual excellence. It's actually for the weak. That's who it's for. Because it's so beautiful. That you can walk in there totally... unconscious, juggling a baby. You still have poo on your hand from changing a diaper. And then, because you're weak, And so you're not recollected, and you're not.
Yeah.
But then, you'll hear the introit, and it's like it can take you, and it can carry you. So it's the veil, actually, again, that condescends to you.
I have this moment. I will always, one of those memories that's burned in there, and it's the first time I really heard the Kyrie, which all masses have, and it's Lord of Mercy 3 times, Christ of Mercy 3 times, and then Lord of Mercy 3 times.
In Greek, yeah.
And it's at the very beginning of the Mass. Well, it's like the first third of the Mass, and it helps get you. It's supposed to aid you getting into this posture of humility and contrition and mea culpa and all of that. Because the last thing you want to be when you're heading into Mass is full of yourself. So it's like, Lord have mercy.
Yeah.
No, really. No, really.
Yes.
Lord have mercy. No, really. Lord have mercy.
Right.
9 times. And anyway, I was just a baby Catholic, basically. And it takes a while to kind of get through it because it's so elevated. They prolong. That's the thing that chant does too, is it really lets you focus on one phrase.
Right. That's right.
For like 30 seconds or more, I'll try to get through it so you can get to your point. But anyway, it took, 5 of these Kyries for me to go, what's going on? Like, are we just going to do this forever? Like what? And then I was like, oh, I'm supposed to be praying this. Like, this is supposed to be leading me into prayer, because I'm such a distracted person, or let's get on, or like a baby's, like you said. And so why are we just saying this 9 times?
Over and over and over again.
And then it took that long for me to actually start praying.
Yeah.
Because I'm weak.
Yeah.
And
that's why the beauty is so merciful. It's so condescending. It's like, here it is 9 times, just in case it takes you 7 times to even join in this prayer and realize what's going on.
The poor's head in hand bear I, bedecked with bass and rosemary.
How many people do you know who are building their home culture around seasonal harvest and feasting? Or that are hunting as you are for self-sufficiency and back-to-the-land values? Or that share your artist's passion for human-scale meatcraft? At FarmsteadMeatsmith.com, we've created a community of hundreds of omnivores from around the world with these shared goals, and 2 major places for them to learn from and inspire one another. First, we have our semi-annual hands-on educational event, The Family Pig, here at our Heartland homestead in Oklahoma. Come meet Brandon, get your elbows greasy, and over the course of 3 days, kill, cut, cure, and cook 2 pigs completely. You'll rub those greasy elbows with other meatsmiths from around the country, sharing meals and conversations to inspire you for years to come. Secondly, for more remote learning, over at FarmsteadMeatsmith.com, we host a purely digital membership program with an archive of film and textual resources 5 years deep now. And both our on-site classes and online program include access to our most unique and rewarding private community Facebook page, Meatsmith Table, which is the only international network by and for homesteaders harvesting animals on a domestic scale using traditional and regional methods. We've been told that our classes are life-changing and the membership program unparalleled in quality and quantity. To get a taste of our education, search FarmsteadMeatsmith.com and our YouTube channel for our free films, conversations, and downloads. Explore how we and other meatsmiths across the globe may best come alongside you and support you in building your home around the harvest. Please head to FarmsteadMeatsmith.com today.
That's why I say that the chant is it really appeals to your intellect. even in the sense of mental prayer. So mental prayer or meditative prayer is like, it's not a discursive prayer so much. It's not wordy. It's not terribly verbal. It's very meditative. It's not Eastern meditative. You're not trying to lose yourself or anything. It's actually the opposite. You're staying anchored ever more deeply in what is true by thinking about it, contemplating it, and beholding it, which is usually beholding, the end goal being to behold our Lord. And the chant leads you into that by the melodismatic chants, which is what you just referred to. And I've heard people call it melodismatic.
Okay.
It sounds like a silly word, but
Okay.
that's what they call it. But you'll get to the Alleluia or the gradual, which is basically extremely prolonged.
Yeah.
So you will have several bars, a long succession of notes for one word. And it'll be, I don't know, I've never timed it because you're kind of outside of time, but it's just basically, and then they might even repeat that word. Well, they do, of course, especially if it's the Alleluia, they'll repeat that. But it will be many, many, many notes. And they'll just, if you're listening, you realize they're still on one word.
Yeah.
We've had a couple of, I guess you could say, movements, maybe a couple of themes in the melody itself. But it's actually, we're still on one word. We're still on rex or something, king, or, sanguina, or we're still on blood. And it's just, and it's actually, I don't know how you could not meditate on that. Because then you have the thematic content that the melody itself brings, guiding your meditation, your thoughts on that one word. And it's that's why it's intellectual. That's why it's appealing to your intellect. Yeah. And all the while, it's remarkably beautiful. And I think there's also something about beauty that is it helps remove distraction. There's almost a sense in which if something is not, if a situation is not beautiful, or no, if it is beautiful, we are almost liberated, freed to take it for what it is. But ugliness is, in a sense, it's just an endless stream of distraction, is basically what it is. And it's cutting at the singularity, the single focus of your mind. It's fragmenting you. That's just kind of what ugliness is. It is a distraction. And so on a very simple level, it's when everything is beautiful, even the meditation, even the prayer, every single prayer of the Mass. And we don't regard any of it as purely utilitarian or just functional or therapeutic or something. It's all beautiful. It just means it's not distracting. None of it is distracting you from the one thing that is needful.
At least none of the exteriors are distracting you.
Yeah, right.
You might still have your interior distractions.
Yeah, you still got to work on that. But I think the beauty is your best aid in that too. Yeah. To help combat
you get better.
Those interior
it helps you actually fight those. Yeah. For sure. And you get better and better at quieting inside. And beauty, we keep saying beauty. Beauty actually has a very technical, precise definition that maybe we can go into another time. We're getting close to, we have a little more time. But there's a really good homily, or no, it's a lecture I can share. It has a really good definition of beauty by Father Ripperger. And it I can always remember two of his three main bullet points of beauty. And number one is that beauty is always symmetrical. And this applies to music, it applies to cooking, it applies to any art. There's a symmetry to it. And then, and Father Ripperger goes on and on about this, about, for like 10 minutes, what that means. And then beauty is also clear. There's a clarity. And I forgot the third one. But the clarity is what I think you were just saying, like, it shows itself. Even though it's veiled, you're never
there's no secret to it.
Yeah.
There's no like, it's not Gnostic, it's very clear
Yeah.
about itself.
Yeah. Well, I think the third one is it's whole or it's integral.
Okay.
Is that it? It's not missing any parts. That might be
Maybe.
symmetry. That might be symmetry also, but
Yeah.
It has everything that is appropriate to its nature. Everything. It's whole. And I think that part of the clarity of beauty is that it is striking.
Mm-hmm.
It strikes you with its
Yes,
clarity.
that's definitely part of it.
Because there's something about ugliness that obfuscates the nature of a thing.
Right. Yeah.
It's a defect. There's something that is hiding whatever that thing is, because you're not getting it all. There's a defect. Either it's missing or it's being clouded.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas clarity, wholeness, and symmetry are actually striking, and you can't help but look at it and be drawn to it.
Yeah. Which is interesting because
Completeness, that's it, yeah.
wholeness
Wholeness is it's complete.
It's finished. Yeah, it's complete. You're right. That's why you don't really look at a 3-year-old and say, oh, she's so beautiful.
Right.
You might, but we don't mean it in the same way that a fully grown woman is beautiful, or the Mona Lisa is beautiful. Like there's a completeness there. Like Mother Mary is so beautiful.
In fact, we say she's super cute.
Yeah.
And the thing about cute is that it's incomplete.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
But in like a winsome, sweet way.
Yeah. Or if we do say she's beautiful, I mean in a 3-year-old way.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the baby is so beautiful because it's such a beautiful baby.
Yes.
I don't mean in the fullness of her feminine, that's to come.
You wouldn't consider her fulfilled in her expressing the fullness of her nature.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yet.
Yeah. But at the same time, it is still veiled because it's in Latin.
The chant.
Yes. But it's not like because you were just saying the hiddenness of more modern things, like we obfuscate it intentionally, but in order for it to remain hidden. Whereas I would say that the veiledness of good beauty is to help enlighten it further to you. One is hidden and blurred to keep us in the dark. And one is veiled because that's actually what aids us in understanding it more. Yeah. I don't know.
It helps us shed our own blindness so that we can see it.
Yeah.
I think that's the nature of that kind of veiled. Veiledness. And a lot of the modern project, I think, at least philosophically, is either to, like you said, the veil is impenetrable. You can't get through it. All you have is what you see on the one side of the veil. Or there's nothing behind the veil. That's like the spectrum of modern philosophy.
There you go.
Since Kant, basically, or even Descartes. See, the stick is bending. You can't know anything. You can't see through the veil when he held the stick in the water.
Can't trust it.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's inimical to reality. And that's why I think chant, beautiful liturgy, is actually the undoing of that. It's very hard, I think, to remain in that modern obfuscated state, that essential philosophical cynicism about the true, the good, and the beautiful being there at all, or it being utterly inaccessible to you when you behold it veiled in the chant and in the Mass, in the beautiful liturgy. That's actually, I feel like that's the key that can unlock that kind of modern pendulum swing between we can't see things because our senses are insufficient, and then the other side of the spectrum, which is the thing itself doesn't actually exist. The truth is not there. Beauty, I think, is a very compelling answer to that. And I know, I can't remember who it was. I feel like I've heard a couple speakers mention it, but they talk about the greatest apologetic for the existence of God is the music of Bach, Johann Sebastian Bach.
Huh.
And I kind of agree with that. because Bach is very beautiful, but I would say, no, actually, really, truly, we could probably suss it out by rational proofs that it's actually chant. That the proof of the existence of God is the beauty of chant. Because it's inarguable, but it's also part of the divine revelation of God himself in the liturgy, in the church.
There's been some really great people that I follow. Timothy Flanders is a really neat thinker, and he's got a YouTube channel as well as I think like a Patreon membership. But he's a musician, but he also does more apologetic history stuff too. And he breaks down kind of, I mean, the goodness of certain secular musics, as far as like what beats are good and what beats are actually kind of troublesome to the human mind and the human body and the passions. Most folk music is wonderful, and he gets really kind of technical and scientific and definitely musical in his language. But he's a good one to look at. And I can even link to a very specific article that goes into that if you're interested more. It's just so esoteric, like just, I guess that so much of this, it resonates with our broader family life too, living on the land. There is so much that is veiled, so much beauty of the homestead life that is veiled. So much harmony and melody that you see in living in accord with nature. And I think that this chant has just sort of become, for us at least, a manifestation.
Sorry.
It's okay. Of, it kind of gives... like weight to it. It puts skin on the bones a little bit for us. Like, I don't know. I almost like the B-roll to our life, like when you watch a movie and like something's happening and the music is there, like the chant really expresses the fullness of living a full life on the land. It's not, I mean, there's moments where we like have a folk moment, or like a soft rock kind of moment,
Blues.
Yeah, there's that too. But like overall, what keeps us steady beat, so to speak, is the chant. And sometimes I'll even have it on in the house, and it's so good in helping you stay calm and stable, especially in those moments when the darkness comes or a moment of frustration. It really keeps you level-headed. I mean, imagine tackling all the trials that we do and having this B-roll of like some sloppy music. It just wouldn't help. It just would bring us down. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's absolutely true. I mean, some music fragments you. It disintegrates you. And chant puts you together. It orders you. Right. Because it appeals to that highest part of your being, which is your intellect. And rather than the lowest part of your being, which are your appetites. Yeah. And it absolutely, I mean, I think anyone can feel that. And one concrete example of that, I think, is there are a few situations in life where you don't want music playing. And or if you're going to have music playing, it has to be exactly perfect, or it's not going to work. And one of those is childbirth. I don't know if you remember this, but people are different too. So some of you could maybe, in the throes of labor, you could handle like, death metal. I don't know, or hard rock or whatever. But I'm going to go out on a limb and say most women, it's a no. It's a hard pass. Yeah. And maybe, it's even incomprehensible to think of like music, having music on at that moment, when you're in labor and you're the woman needs to focus, and she's working through the contractions, and like the last thing in the universe she needs is some self-loving,
Taylor Swift.
someone belting out something about their pain, right?
Yeah.
Or some ridiculous, embarrassing thing.
Yeah.
With some horrible, distracting, fragmenting beat.
Mm-hmm.
Or even, I would wager it would even be difficult to find like classical music that you would like playing.
Yeah. I don't need emotion at all.
During child labor.
Mm-mm.
Truly.
As
I mean, think about it.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, like a Bach fugue.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think so. You're going to tell me to turn that off.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. There comes a point of going with the labor theme.
Yeah.
Where I even need the chant to be turned off because it needs to be silent, like absolutely silent.
Mm-hmm.
But because I've been kind of put in the right zone in my mind, I'm taken to the right state of mind that the chant kind of primed me for, which is a state of generosity and this is not about me, and just self-abasement.
It's prayerful.
Beauty. It gives me it ignites my will. It's prayerful. I'm like united with God and the saints and the angels, and while I'm doing this very earthly bodily thing.
And because it's beautiful by its nature, it's not distracting. It's not fragmenting not grabbing an appetite and dragging it over here.
Well,
drag your attention.
Exactly. Here's the thing too, is when you listen to chant, for me, quite frankly, and I hear a bunch of celibate men who have sacrificed family lives, and or celibate women, let's say it, like the women at Gower, I'm going to mention them, and they've given up the family life, and that level of sacrifice is, I unite that with the music, and for me that's also why it's so beautiful, is I attach the beauty of what they've given to achieve this level of worship and prayer that they're even sharing through modern technology that they don't have to do, so that someone like me, anyway, I, like, for instance, I think it was 2 Easters ago, there was a gentleman, he's now a deacon, came to our church, and he sang with our priest, and it was just the two of them. Wasn't a big fancy scola. It was just the two of them, and they both are way up there. Like, they're really, really good. And they did just enough polyphony, just the two of them, that it, like, I still have the, like the muscle memory or something of hearing them. And whatever, postures, as I've said, that it put me in for that Holy Week, was that whole week of hearing them and watching them embody sacrifice and like literally the Easter sacrifice.
Right. So they're basically saying Mass all the time. I mean, so many Masses, they don't sleep for several days in a row so that they can pray. Yeah. Because actually every priest and this particular deacon, they actually must pray the divine office, which is the other great liturgy of the Western Rite, which is also chanted. Yes. And so they were doing, lauds and vespers and all the other matins, even all the other offices in between, and all the Masses of Holy Week, and getting up early on Easter Sunday to chant 3 more Masses without a choir or a schola, just themselves. Yeah. All in a row.
It was amazing. Yeah. And I carried that with me for that whole year, essentially. Yeah. That memory of, so when I encountered certain trials, it's sometimes, I mean, not all the time, I'm not that good, but like I would kind of take my own memory or imagination even back to that And I was able to get through those moments a little better by my will being strengthened, by seeing these men pour themselves out the way they did. I can certainly pour myself out in this particular situation.
Yeah.
So anyway, that was very profound.
Yeah.
And you kind of feed off of it in perpetuity.
Yeah.
You know, that's one of the neat things. That's why people anchor themselves around monasteries too.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, that's why we have, I think you could even say that's why I have anchorites or,
sure.
Monks who, they can stay at a place and live a very austere life. Again, praying the divine office 7 times a day faithfully for decades, because they're carried by the chant, by the prayer. So I wanted to also mention, you actually already mentioned the Our Lady of Guadalupe Seminary. That's the seminary in Nebraska, Denton, Nebraska, that many of the priests come out of, that we've been served by. It's a very particular order. And they put out an album about 5 years ago now, I think. Maybe 5 or 6 years ago. Anyway, it's called Requiem. You can find it on iTunes. It's, very accessible. And it's a beautiful album. You play it actually during all of your classes. Oh yeah, it kind of just plays constantly in here.
Yeah.
That's the other thing. You never surfeit of chant. It is impossible to get sick of it. Seriously, think about that.
Yeah.
How can you have a created thing on the earth that you don't get sick of?
It's true. I mean,
it's absolutely true. I mean, just try it.
It's
the chant.
Amazing food that you like. Eventually, you will dislike it.
Yeah.
Same with music. I remember, and I'm a music buff. I used to listen to everything, and I would memorize things. It's just what I did. And I would get to a point when I was riding in my car and be like, oh man, I'm exhausted. I can't listen to anything more, Yeah.
And
I'd replace the same songs. I loved it. And I was just, I hate thinking about it now, but all the time I wasted. But it definitely began, I began to have a distaste for certain things because they only had the appetitive pull, It's like having too much candy or something.
Yeah. It's like guzzling maple syrup.
Yeah.
Which is to say that chant might take some acquisition.
That's true.
You can acquire, just like an acquired taste.
That's
we
true.
Say all the time. Those are the only tastes worth having. Because they're born of discipline, and you get a higher reward for it. Because it's what you have to do is discipline yourself to enjoy the complexity. And the higher appeal to your higher nature that it has. And it's just the same with chant. So you give it some time, just like you give your homemade bacon some time.
That's right.
You eat it for a while, and then you realize, wait a minute, this is bacon.
That's right.
I haven't been crazy about it for the past 2 weeks, but then you try the old stuff. You're like, oh, this is noise. This is cardboard noise. I don't know what this is, but it's not bacon, and it's gross. And because the real thing grows on you because it resonates. Because it's in the same plane as you are. It's of the same stuff. And
it's true. I mean, how many of you, our audience members, would really appreciate being called a food snob? I don't think very many people would, because you understand that real bacon is real bacon, and you can't be called a food snob. It's just...
It transcends preference. Is that what you mean?
Yes.
Yeah. This isn't like, well, I just really like home-cured bacon because, I don't know.
No,
I'm better or something. It's like, no. The other stuff isn't bacon.
No.
And I almost could say the same thing, with chant.
It's blue collar. It's not, I just don't want people to go away thinking this is, hoity-toity.
Yeah.
This is real human stuff.
Yeah. It is.
Yeah. And you don't need a master's degree to enjoy it.
No.
Because, like, you do need to dig a little. Just like if you're making homemade bacon, you need to do maybe just a little bit of learning, but only because we've gotten away from it.
Right.
If you had grown up with it, you wouldn't have known any different. So.
Not because it's inaccessible in itself or complex.
Exactly.
Or difficult.
Or only for scholars.
Right. Yeah.
It's the same thing with chant.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we sing some chant in our home. So a lot of it.
So how does it work out in our life? What do we do?
Yeah, well, we pray the Angelus at
That's
6,
a great
noon,
chant.
and 6. That's a
Yeah.
really wonderful
Simple
one.
chant.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I can maybe link to the thing that we do.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, Thomasina, she's 3, and she sings it so beautifully. It's so cute in a 3-year-old way.
Dominica has started doing it, and she's 1.5.
Oh, really?
So you know how like little babies, like 1.5-year-olds, are delayed, not because they're dumb, but because they're little. And so just like, all of your friends leave after a nice visit, the door shuts, and then the 1.5-year-old starts waving goodbye.
Yeah.
Right? I don't know if anyone else experienced that. That is the standard operating
Yes.
procedure for our children. And with the chant, so we'll all chant right now because we're in the octave of the Assumption. We will chant this beautiful, to the best of our ability, we try, solemn tone of the Salve Regina, which is a little longer, and we're putting a little more effort into it because it is the octave of the Assumption, and it's a beautiful hymn prayer to Our Lady. And there's more of a plain chant version of it that's more common that you would pray every day, but then there's like for her feast days you do the solemn tone. It's got more notes and it's very beautiful. And so Dominica notices because it's different, and all the kids, like, we put a little more effort into it, and we sing a little more loudly, and we're trying to hit the notes really well. And so we'll go through it, and then we finish, Ora pro nobis sancta Dei genitris, and then Dominic will go, oh, like it's the end of the prayer. We're done with the song.
Oh my goodness.
That's when she chooses to begin her chant.
Oh my goodness.
And it's amazing because it is, again, it's this crazy paradox. There's no music that is more elevated, but it's also the most simple because it is so pure. And it's like polyphony is something that came, that's composed by composers. But the chant itself, Gregorian chant, is not polyphonic. It is a single string of notes. That's all it is. For the whole year, every day, every Mass, every feast day has its own chant. And all of it is simple. All of it. And so it's amazing. It's like this little school of music that she's in, because she doesn't know it, but she's doing like, a little third, a little second, a little fourth, she's doing these little leaps.
Yeah.
All of which to say it's utterly accessible.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Thomasina, who is 3, the only reason she can't sing the whole thing is because she gets kind of bored and she moves on. But she can sing everything that she listens to.
Yeah.
And she can sing it.
Yeah, she tracks.
Yeah.
We used to, and by the way, because I'm acting surprised because I haven't been out.
Right.
I'm like, this is news to me.
Yeah.
I haven't been out there when they're singing because I'm in bed by that time.
Yes.
I'm carrying our 9th child now.
She is pregnant.
So, I'm done by 3 p.m. or earlier. I go to bed. I'm in the back of the house, and the kids come and visit me. But like, I'm done. I don't. So I haven't been out there in the last few weeks to hear the progress. It's amazing.
It's pretty cute.
We used to do Compline.
Yeah.
In English. That was like sort of the beginning of our like learning about chant in general. And that was really good. That was like for kind of a private devotional. Trying to learn a little bit.
That's right. But we stopped. And a lot of that reason, part of that was that it doesn't work in English.
Yeah.
It's
there was some hindrances.
It sounds awkward.
It can.
It sounds like you're fitting two things together that don't fit, and because they don't.
Yeah.
It doesn't work.
Yeah.
And it was, which means there's just a little bit of dissonance there. It's a little
bit,
fragmented.
Yeah.
And
It was
good, but
I mean,
I would say actually it's harder.
Okay, sure.
I would say it takes more effort.
That's
it takes
true.
extraordinary effort
Mm-hmm.
to attempt to consistently chant in English.
Mm-hmm.
That's harder.
Mm.
It is easier, simpler, and it fits better to do it in Latin.
Okay.
Absolutely.
That's a good argument, actually.
Yeah, it's so true.
Yeah. And when you're moving that slow with your words, it actually, depending on where you're looking, like you have the translation right there, and
Mm-hmm.
you're spending, a whole lot of
20
time
notes.
on the word
Yeah.
semper, you're just like, always.
Yeah.
Always.
Yes. We're still on always.
Yeah.
Yes. Uh-huh.
and then your mind can go there
Yeah.
more. But so we did Compline, and then we do the Angelus. I started to teach the kids. We did like we come in and out, I try not to make the kids too sick of something, but the Our Lady of Guadalupe Seminary website has a really great Gregorian Chant kind of intro. It has all the exercises that you've learned on, and we got pretty far. It gave them a good foundation, enough to where they could look at a piece of music and track, and understand a second and a third and a fourth and a fifth, and then the do re mi fa sol la ti do, of course. We didn't
solfege.
Yeah, that's what that is. That's, if you've seen Sound of Music, you know what we're talking about. Which it takes a while to get it in you to the point where you can just look at a fourth, and it depends on which fourth it is, but to basically go there without already knowing the piece of music.
Yeah.
That's what you're learning to do right now. And you're pretty far. You're a little further than what I was at.
I'm way further than when I started.
Yeah.
I don't know how
You
far
are.
I am, but
You
it's,
are.
daily practice is the way to go for that.
Yeah. It's such a good human skill. Like, if you're going to teach music at a vocal level, like just as a homeschooling kind of approach, I would say teach a little bit of solfege.
Definitely.
Yeah. And it's very, like, you can find it out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of embarrassing, but I think you will get an enormous leg up on learning solfege, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, if you watch The Sound of Music 7 times when you're 10, 11, and 12. Like that.
Yeah. It's true.
It really helps.
It stays
because
with
she
you.
says it forwards and backwards.
Yes.
And that's kind of the beginning of being able to be flexible with it. And and they even skip it, she goes, they do a couple thirds, I think, in that song. Anyway, I feel bad for people who are learning solfege that did not watch Sound of Music.
Right.
It's remarkable. They have to do a lot more work.
Yeah.
They do. I mean, they got to learn just the mere words, that we put to it and the tone that they go with. Whereas if you're in Julie Andrews' school in your youth, it's there. You have a little more to work with.
Yeah. I did want to mention the Gregorian Chant Academy. So he is an actual Catholic who runs his online school. He has some things on YouTube that you could find. He actually has some really great interviews with Father Ripperger that I keep mentioning, kind of apologizing for or arguing for why chant is so great, even spiritually. It's really strengthening. And so anyway, Gregorian Chant Academy is a great place if you wanted. There's also there's a ton of options out there. There's schools of thought, just like everything else.
Yes, and you want the solemn method.
Okay.
Don't go semiology.
Okay.
It's a little whiny. There are a couple different ways to interpret the chant, but
yes,
you want to go with the solemn.
Okay, I think that's
Solemn
what he
method.
does. But anyway, if you just want to hear it, go to Nicholas Lemmy's website. I think he has a website. I know he has a YouTube page, and you'll hear the world class at the seminary there. It's beautiful, and you can hear how they just, when you hear polyphony for the first time, it knocks you off your feet.
Yeah.
It's really crushing.
It is. Yeah, even to this day, when I hear it again, there's almost, I get offended. It's kind of weird. I'm like, wait, there's a sound that is this beautiful, and we've listened to other things?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Why? If it could be this, how could we ever do anything else? Like, what is wrong with us? Oh.
Yeah. Well, it's been buried too. Especially in the last 70 years, it's just been gone. It was erased, in large part. So our generation is discovering it, and we're going, hold the phone.
Yeah.
Like, this exists.
Wait a minute. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Everything gets given and taken by God for whatever reason, and maybe we misused it at some level, but it is objectively better music than anything else. Yeah. So why not feed your soul with it?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can make what you will. You can become prideful with it. Fine, do that. See how it goes for you. But you can also become extremely humbled by it.
Yeah.
And that's what God wants to use of it. So, well, so much for special interest topics.
Oh.
Wow, we're at 2 hours and 10 minutes.
Okay.
We better stop. I know we could do jujitsu in a whole nother episode. Yeah.
In an related note.
Yeah. We'll cover that next time. Yeah, this has been wonderful. I like recapping chant with you.
Yeah.
Makes me want to go sing. Thank you so much, Meatsmiths, for listening to our take on all things meat making, householding, and culture keeping. We hope it's helped you in growing your home around the harvest.